For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollos, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, and good morning, and welcome into another edition of Dude's Hockey Hotline. I am your host, Matt Diegert, and as always, I have my my co-pilot with me, Brian. How are you this morning at Beyond716?
Doing okay. How's everything out there?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's a little cold here, a lot of patches of ice, and can't get away from it here in Buffalo. How about you?
We had a huge rainstorm here for a few days, which was good and bad, of course, because, those burn areas get affected. That's the bad part. The good part is, when you get 4 inches of rain or more, out here, it's a big deal. So, but now it's nice and cool and, back to normal, I guess, as you could say, but I could never complain. I mean, it's 57 degrees today, and that sounds pretty good to you, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 18 degrees here, so if anything above 40 would be good right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had some fun hockey over the week here, with the Four Nations starting and stuff like that. So we'll definitely get into some of that stuff, and we're definitely going to talk some Sabres stuff. Today, whether what we think of the state of the team going into the trade deadline, what we'd like to see happen, things like that. So definitely stay right here with us as we go over some of this stuff. So first and foremost, Brian, I want to start with the Four Nations because that's the most recent thing that's kind of going on right now, and it's been a lot of fun. The 2 games that have happened have been a lot of fun. You had that overtime game with Mitch Marner coming in over the blue line, making Eric Carlson look kind of dumb as he kind of pushed him back into not into his goaltender, but like towards the goaltender, and to rip the shot and just ended the game that way. And then we saw a complete, I don't want to say domination, but Finland, like you and I were texting back and forth, they like to play defense, and they seem to hold up against that powerful U.S. team for 2 periods. And it was 1-1, and it was a really, really good game. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden the floodgates opened. The Tkachuk brothers scored 4 goals total, 2 each. And, that line, as much as people say, in Saberland hate Jack Eichel, that line is something to be marveled about, because you got 2 and that's the thing, both Matthew and Brady, as big as they are and as tough as they both play a very different style game, with each other. They'll still, each of them will play like their father did and get in front of the net and, not back down from other guys and hit and check it. But they both have a sort of different finesse style game to them when they get the puck on their stick, that I don't think their father did have in Keith Tkachuk. I mean, he was always one of my favorite players when I was younger to trade for on like those your NHL power play or NHL 20 whatever, so a lot of fun. I remember playing with him. But so how do you think that everything was? Because I thought that they were both really good games and a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, the enthusiasm has been great, right? I think the format's been excellent. I mean, first of all, you have it in Montreal, which is a great hockey town. Even though we're not fans of the Canadians, we can't deny their passion, for hockey is off the charts. One thing about that Sweden-Canada game, and we'll get into it, is their coach his name is Sam Hallam for Sweden. Explain to me how Rasmus Dahlin is not on the ice once in that overtime.
Oh my God!
With his speed and power, I don't understand how you just said something about Erik Karlsson looking silly. I mean, Rasmus Dahlin maybe in that situation could have handled it a little bit better. I mean, that was a great shot by Mitch Marner. I mean, that was an elite
oh my God, yeah.
level shot. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't know about you, but I envision Mitch Marner in a Sabre uniform. I'm like, yes, he likes the Bills.
Did
right?
you hear what he said? Did you hear what
Yeah.
he said?
Yep.
All right, for anybody who didn't hear what he said, Mitch Marner came out and was asked who he thought could transfer over to the NHL game. He said his GOAT, Josh Allen.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have him in Buffalo?
Let's bring Mitch Marner to Buffalo.
I'll tell you what,
guys.
honestly, Matt, I thought if there was a big trade possibility for the Sabres or someone, it could have been Mitch Marner. The only problem is now the cap is really going up a lot further than we thought. So I think Toronto will probably able to get Mitch in, because they're going to get Tavares off the books. But, we're getting off the path there. But that, I was thinking maybe that could be something, but I would be a little surprised at this point if he leaves. But, as far as Jack Eichel goes, it's funny how or things evolve, right? Like when Jack Eichel first got traded, we all had a lot of venom. His first game, he came back with the the comments with the media, and he wasn't good. We know that. There's full disclosure. I didn't like the way Jack Eichel handled it, but now you see the way Jack Eichel's playing, okay? And now you see that obviously the fusion worked for him, right? So it circles back to me about our organization and how we mishandle things. That's more what I hate.
You know what we say all the time? You know what cures that?
What's that?
You know what cures that bad attitude?
Winning.
I mean, it's like you can hate him all you want and everything like that, and for the way that he kind of, I don't want to say forced himself out of here and things like that, but like all the hurt and everything from a player that we basically accepted, and then he's like, I'm signing a 10-year contract and not wanting to leave, or we finally have our our player of the future, and he's a very good hockey player, and all that stuff combined, and then you basically turn around and stab the Sabres in the back, or stab the fan base in the back.
Yep.
Sure, I understand the hate. The hate, but also it's a business decision on his part. They were not winning. They're not winning. They're not showing that they're proving to win. And it kind of shows. Like, where are we right now?
Yep.
We're nothing's changed from when Jack Eichel was here to when he wasn't. Like, we had one good year where we missed the playoffs by a point.
A point.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's go ahead.
Yeah, that's the thing. No, that's the thing, and it's like Jack Eichel, obviously he signed that long contract extension, right? So there must have been part of him that wanted to be there, right? Like if he really didn't want to be with Buffalo Sabres, he just would have done RFA deals, or I'll take as short as I can, try to get me out of here, or take a bridge deal, right? Like I don't know if he would have taken an 8-year contract to say, so some things evolve. And again, Jack Eichel had his part in this whole thing, right, Matt? I mean, he said some things. Maybe his attitude was a little bit this and that, but he's a young guy. I mean, he was 21, 22. I don't think the Sabres surrounded him with the right leadership that he needed to take his game. And I think, it just, what I'm saying is I think you see the different kind of player he is and the kind of person he is. I think he needed to get out of Buffalo, and he's found a home in Vegas. Obviously, you said the winning is a part of it, but he's taking his game to another level. It's not just
he's
the
Hart
little
Trophy
things.
level.
Yeah.
He's playing Hart Trophy level hockey.
Yeah. And I don't really watch him and go, I don't get that upset anymore, because I think about our organization and how do we let this happen, right? I mean, you can't tell me that every superstar player has a perfect relationship with their organization, but yet they still stay there, right? There's ebbs and flows. Perfect example, the legendary Kobe Bryant, okay? Kobe Bryant wanted out of Los Angeles. People forget this. He was really close to getting traded to the Clippers. Very, very close. There were bad times. There were ups and downs there, but isn't Kobe a forever Laker? And but yet he, you know what I mean? There's ups and flows, and the Sabres didn't ride that out and get him the things he needed. So I'm more upset about the Sabres in this thing than Eichel at this point. That's where I'm at, personally.
Well, and that's the thing. Like a couple of years ago, when everything was looking good, and it looked like it was Jack Eichel locker room issue, locker room cancer, whatever, and it's like, the Sabres are starting to turn it around. They're starting to look good. They're starting to we missed the playoffs by a point. Next year's going to be our year. But when you don't do anything in the last 2 years to improve your team, it just proves you're the same hockey team. And, it kind of, when you're talking about Jack Eichel, maybe if it's still Botterill, or maybe if it's a different GM, maybe if it's he lets him have that surgery and is like, and goes to Pagula and is like, hey, I think no, it's not a a surgery that's happened a lot, but let's let him do this because we're going to either have a MVP type caliber player, or he's gonna never play again, and I'd rather take the risk. I mean, like I remember, we've all watched The Last Dance, and watched a lot of watched stuff with any sports fans watched a lot of stuff with Michael Jordan, and he was asked back in '86 if you had a really bad headache, regarding his injury, if you had a really bad headache, and I told you here's 10 ibuprofen and 9 of them would cure you, but one of them might kill you, or one of them will kill you, what are you doing? And he said, I'll take my chance with the 9 because it's 90% chance I'm going to play again, or 90% chance I'm going to cure the headache, and only 10% chance I'm going to die.
Yep.
So I mean, when it comes down to it, you let him have that surgery. You let him because you're talking about one of the best players, a top 10 player in the NHL. And this year, and he's only getting better because with age. Like, it's, you could
we operated from fear. We operated from fear, man. We had a fear that he was going to get the surgery and it was going to backfire, and we had an asset that we couldn't trade. That was the Sabres operate, and that the message that sends out the players around the league is that, well, the Sabres aren't really looking to take good care of me. They're just worried more about their asset, and those things hurt. They hurt when maybe the Sabres want to now go out and talk to free agents, and then they say, "Do you want to come to Buffalo?" And they're like, "Wait a minute, Jack Eichel, we share the same agent. And I heard some stories about that." Right. We talk about this all the time about Brandon Beane and how he handles certain situations, right, and how that has long-term effects, like the Matt Ariza situation. Like, I thought Beane handled that well because that was delicate. You have to, not to make it a Bills thing, but you see what I'm talking about? And with this thing, I think it sends a message to the rest of the league, like, oh, the Sabres don't, they're not really serious about certain things, and I would rather just stay away from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really kind of what it is. But it does kind of go into that, and players talk within agencies, and throughout, agents talk to other agents, and I think I think the whole Jack Eichel thing kind of set Kevin Adams off on a horrible path. Like, I really do. Like, and he kind of did it to himself, by not figuring that out. Like, that should have been figured out. I understand you have one of the best players in the world on your team, and he can. But in all honesty, you have one of the best players in the world on your team, and you're going to get Alex Tuch, a couple of picks, and Peyton Krebs. Like,
we looked at that as addition by subtraction in terms of culture, right? We were thinking, okay, and Alex Tuch was a really good player to bring in. I'm not.
Absolutely. I love Alex Tuch.
The return was, considering the surgery risk, considering the contract length, right? You only had certain teams that could really trade for him with the amount of money. It was okay. I did walk away from that saying it was a great return, or it wasn't a bad return. It was like, it could have been a little bit better, but that's the situation the Sabres put themselves in, because here's a guy that demanded a trade, right? And when players do that, it lessens their value. That happens without question. So that's really the thing. But anyway, that's where I'm at with Eichel. I mean, I just don't have that same. Every time I watch him, we got to bury him and stuff like. Listen, they won. The trade worked out great for Vegas. It is what it is. It's a done deal. I'm kind of moved on from that. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and there's no reason to hate Eichel anymore. I mean, enjoy watching a great hockey player play the game, and I get it. Everybody's kind of miffed at especially after the first time that we played him, especially after how he left here and things like that. With the comments like,
oh, he handled it
really
poorly.
like,
oh yeah,
that wasn't cool, and it's like I'm glad that they took them out that first game, but it's like anything else. You have 31 other teams in the NHL you have to beat. And if you're not doing that, then what's the point of anything else that's going on?
The biggest thing he did, Matt, is he took a shot at the fans. And in Buffalo, we talk about this all the time. In Buffalo, the fans, these teams mean so much to the fans. It's different than most places I've ever seen, right? You just don't do that. That's like the biggest, no you could possibly. I mean, it's that way in every market, but especially I always said he could take shots at Pagula, you could take shots at the GM, even your former players. But when
fans would probably embrace that, like, oh, it was Pagula. Like, let's talk bad about Pagula. He wouldn't let me get my surgery. What a piece of crap. Not letting me take care of my own body, or not icing a competitive team, and whatever. Not paying whatever. Fine. Say all that stuff, but don't talk bad about the fans. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that he went out and did that, because that's not we're the ones that were supporting you, and you have to realize when you're not playing to the level of that, there's only so many seats in stadiums or in arenas, and so there's sometimes fans think that they're sending a message by not going to games. And that truly is the best way to send it, but you're not sending it to the players, but when you're trying to send a message to the, somebody's going to get hurt somewhere, right? Yeah. So it's either going to be you're hurting the players because you're not showing up, and they're really, feeding off your energy, and they want to see, they want to play for you as fans. So you're not showing up, but you're not hurting your own pocketbook, and you're trying to send a message to the ownership / general manager. But then in turn, other things go, so there are always no-win situations. And
it's something that, I would love to see Sabre fans send messages and not show up to games. But the problem with that is that, I agree with you. We're going to get into this showdown tonight. But just to put a bow on this part of it, is it's great if you don't show up. But the problem is, the more the Sabre fans don't show up, you start getting into some territory I don't even want to discuss, and I think you know what I'm talking about. Like, would the team?
No, I don't think that they'd ever
relocate.
I don't think that the NHL would. The NHL kept this. The NHL kept this team out of bankruptcy, or put them into bankruptcy. They ran them for 2-3 years while they were looking for another ownership. I'm not saying it's going to get to, but the NHL will not let the Sabres move. And if they, by some miracle or chance that they move, we're most likely going to be one of the next expansion teams, because you're not taking hockey out of one of the best markets, top 3 markets every single year.
Yep. Like, I was at the Vegas parade when they won the Stanley Cup. I just happened to be in Vegas that weekend.
Yeah.
Right. So I come out, I'm watching. It was actually kind of cool, right? But I was talking to some Knight fans, and we were talking about the Sabres, and they were saying, like, oh, how enthusiastic Vegas is for hockey, which is true, by the way. I'm going to tell you, it's very. But you know what I told them? I said, I started running down what the Sabres have been through for like 11, 12 years. I said, if you guys are still a great market after that, then I will call you a great hockey market. Like, it's great when you win. Like, you're coming out like a ball on fire, you win all these games. It's great. But this is
that's the thing, though.
If they hockey market. Buffalo's not a good hockey market, Matt. It's a great. You and I both know it. It's great.
Yes.
And it's eroded so badly. This is amazing work in a bad way by this organization to get to this point.
Yeah, and to touch on that point about Vegas is, but if they never have to endure that, does that change anything for them being a bad hockey market or good hockey market? Because if they continue to bring in the correct coaching and the correct general manager and the correct whatever, it's whatever.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I mean, hockey heaven. It's I sometimes joke around that it's hockey hell. Like Henry Yoki scored the other night, and I said, it's I already see your face. That's the best part. That's what happens. So that's anyway. Here, there, nor there. But are you ready for tonight? That's all I know. I mean, tonight is one of those nights. I've told non-hockey fans or people that don't really follow hockey much, I said, you got to watch ABC tonight. Like, if you're want something to watch, an
As
event, a sporting event, you like sports, I think this is a nice.
So I mean,
nice one.
Tuck, yeah, definitely. We'll get to this here in a few minutes.
Yep, and Patrick as well.
Also,
Yep.
also
Yes.
Patrick as well. We'll get to that here
Thank
in a
you,
few
guys.
minutes.
Yes.
But we're still talking. We're still kind of going through the Four Nations. We want to go through that real quickly because it's been a lot of fun to watch, and it's a lot of fun talking about actually watching some of the greatest players in hockey right now. You know, as much as let me ask you this one question here real quick, Brian.
Sure.
Would this U.S. team be any better with Tage Thompson on it rather than like a Brock Nelson or whoever?
Brock Nelson has a specific purpose that he has a different type of game, and I'm not giving Tage Thompson any shade at all. I think maybe a little bit, maybe depending on what you're talking about, right? If you need more explosiveness, if you need a guy on the power play, Tage could sit in that office and throw bombs. By the way, speaking of throwing bombs, man, does Patrick Lunny throw bombs when he's on the power play?
Oh my
I mean,
God.
that guy. I mean, when he lines up for that slap shot, I mean, if you watched the game the other night, but that's how Tage is a little bit, right? He could just sit there and throw the bombs. I mean, I was a little surprised that Tage was off the roster, but it also speaks to the depth of how great we are as a nation. Now, maybe Brock Nelson got the call because he's a little bit of he's more of a vet. He's been in the league a long time. He's not going to get that many more opportunities to do
And I
this.
get that.
Tage's number will come up next time, and I think it will. So I think that for the U.S., I'm sure whoever picked the team had some tough decisions there, and unfortunately,
Well, they got what? They got they got the Olympics next year. And the NHL announced that they were going to send players back to the Olympics. Which is great. Which I because you're going to have more. You're going to have basically this Four Nations tournament on a larger scale, and then you're going to have the World Cup in 3 years in 2028. So I'm super excited about that. But before we get to the 8:00 game, what time is that? That's a 1:00 game, right? Today, or
1:00 we have Canada. No, not Canada. Sweden versus
Sweden and Finland. That's going to be another good game. Little upset that UPL is not starting in that. With him being the backup, you'd kind of think that but they went with their other goalie, their third goaltender on the roster. Don't understand why, but
FYI, that game is on TNT and Max for those at home that looking to watch Canada. Oh no, I'm sorry. For Saturday today, everything is on ABC today. I apologize. Everything for Finland, Sweden, U.S. and Canada, everything's on ABC, ESPN Plus, and the whole 9 yards.
Man, can we talk about that for a second? Like how great it is that hockey's back on ABC. Like,
yes, I agree.
Like, I mean, I remember as a kid growing up with the ESPN, the NHL playoff song or the NHL hockey song and everything like that, and whatever. And it's coming. It's just it brings back great memories, and I'm glad
it needs a
they're,
presence. You have to have a presence there for hockey to expand.
And I'm glad ESPN got it back too because it's for them. Losing it and going to TSN for those, it kind of hockey died for unless you're a diehard fan or a fan of hockey, when it was on TSN or whatever whatever the sporting network or whatever it was. It kind of died for that time unless you were a true hockey fan and knew where to watch, and we're actually going to sit down and do that. But what do you see happening?
I think their coverage is solid. I think their coverage. I like Messier and Subban. I mean, they're not. Listen, there's people that complain about them, but I like Messier and Subban in the studio, and I like Steve Levy, and I think the
love Bucci. Love Bucci.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh man, he is so good at calling hockey.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Oh, you
love the playoff coverage. Love the playoff coverage and everything like that. So, what do you think is going to happen in the 1:00 game?
Well, I like Sweden. I think Finland is a very pesky team. They are a little banged up, so I think that's hurting them a little bit in this tournament. I just don't know if they have enough offense to beat Sweden in this game. I got Sweden by like a goal or two. I mean, it's going to be a great. Those countries are right next to each other. It's a rivalry naturally.
Absolutely a rivalry.
It's going to be great, but I expect Sweden to get the W there for sure. How about you?
I'm actually of the mind that it's going to be kind of very, very close, like the Canada Sweden game was. I think it could be another overtime type game because of how big of rivals that they are. They're like that's like U.S. Canada in Europe for hockey.
Yes.
You know, I mean, so it's gonna. They always play each other very, very well. I think that it's gonna be a very good hockey game. I expect to see some goals, and I expect to see, you know, not some crazy hits, but I expect to see some big hits in that game. You know, so we'll definitely see what happens. But I think I have Sweden in overtime again.
Okay.
Them winning in overtime this game.
I got a 4-2 win for Sweden, but a good game. But I think they'll too much Sweden at the end. Love that roster.
And obviously, we're both taking the U.S. tonight over Canada.
I am, and it's not just emotional either. I'll go ahead, Matt. You say.
No, I'll let you get to that, and I'll get to your point first before I make this because it's going to go for a couple of seconds here.
Go for it.
So really, I mean, what was your point about what you expect to see in the game tonight with the U.S.?
I expect to see tonight is where we show the world that we're right on par, if not maybe the best country in the world for hockey. Like, you know, I think we have an edge in net with Hellebuck. I think he's definitely someone that needs to play big tonight. I just love the mix of lines we have, the mix of players. I mean, the depth. It's right there with Canada. I mean, Canada obviously has the star-studded forwards at the top. I mean, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid. Right, those guys are incredidy, but don't sell our guys short either. I mean, we have plenty of juice there, but I just think overall our roster is just a little bit better together, and I think the goaltending will be the ultimate difference in this game tonight. We've always had the goaltending, like when Ryan Miller lost, but Ryan Miller didn't have the firepower that Connor Hellebuck has right now in front of him for this game.
Right. So for my little weekly tangent here. You know me very, I'm very much about sport. I'm very much about, hockey, football, whatever, inclusion, everything like that. I don't want to make this any bit of political, but can we stop fucking booing anthems, please? Like I'm so sick of, I'm sorry. Like it's not the time, just like I thought kneeling is not the time during a fucking anthem to, whatever. That's separate. Like, I get that this is your stage and whatnot, but can we stop making things political during something that is supposed to be, celebrated? It's not just because you have whatever going on in government and things like that. That has nothing to do with what's going on the ice, because you're not booing. Yes, you're booing the national anthem. Sure, I get it. But you're not booing the national anthem. You're booing everything that these players are standing for and everything that these guys are on the ice to do. And it's upsetting what's going on with everything, between governments and things like that. That's why I try to stay largely out of that. I scroll past a lot of that stuff, but stop fucking booing national anthems. I don't care. Like, it's the dumbest thing you can do, and it makes you look like an idiot. It makes you look horrible. It makes you look, because you're there to support these players on the ice, and sure, you boo the national anthem and then you go right back to cheering them. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, stop that. Like, it bothers the hell out of me, because
I get it. Oh, I understand. Listen, I take a very balanced approach to this. I always try to keep things level-headed on that front. I understand. Listen, the climate is what it is right now. There's a lot of things going on. We're not going to make this, we're not turning this into a C-SPAN show right now. Or anything.
No, not at all.
But you know what I mean. But we all know it's there, and it definitely. Let's be honest. It does add a little bit to the fire tonight. It does, right? It's almost like 1980, USA Russia. Why was that also so big? Because the Cold War was at its highest level right there. Like 1980, it was really a big deal, right? And again, I'm not making this political. Don't disagree or agree with anything that's going on. And I you're right, and I understand. Like, things are sensitive right now. There's a lot of, you live by the book. You understand the dynamics of Canada, U.S. in those terms, and how these countries kind of rely on each other for certain right, businesses and things like that. So we're not going to, I don't get that as much as you would, but I
mean,
agree.
and
I would rather it not be there. And, I love Canada. I have a lot of friends in Canada. I've of course, we've all spent a lot of time there, but
like
let's just hope this all dies down at some point. I try to take the medium road and say, hey, it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. Like, let's just
like and
enjoy the rivalry.
that's the thing. That's the thing. Like we sit here as fans of hockey, or U.S. fans, and U.S. hockey fans and whatever. Like hockey started in Canada. Awesome. We joke around, fuck Canada, whatever. Like, as U.S. fans, like, when that, because that rivalry is so, but we don't actually mean, like, fuck the people of Canada. It's, screw these guys on the ice because it's a rivalry. But when it comes down to it, we're not doing that to the players and things like that and everything that, because these are some of the people in Canada are some of the best people that you could ever meet. They'll give the they'll give the shirt for you off their back and do whatever they can. But when it comes around to it, and in a world where everything is political nowadays, can we please just have one thing that is not politics?
It would be nice, but
in sport, please,
stop
making it political. Stop fucking booing. Like, I'm so sick of that.
The one thing I'll say, though, I mean, this is a big stage for Canadian fans to express themselves, right? They don't have an NFL team. They don't have big award shows around the world where they can, you know what I mean? Like, this is really their night to say, hey, we're not. And again, I'm not supporting or hating anything. I'm staying out of it. I don't know all the. And listen, I get it. Listen, there's
so do I. So I understand it, and everybody makes things political.
And listen. All I'll say is, any friends in your life, right? You can only push them so far. So just tread lightly. I take that balanced approach. Like, hey, you can go at you can negotiate and things like that, but just publicly, just be careful, because we don't want to all of a sudden have neighbors. That's one of the great things about the U.S. We have, look at our two countries. We have huge oceans between us. But what if they start flipping? I mean, we're not, again, here we go. We're going down a slippery slope. But you know what I mean? Like, that could be, but tonight, it's the Canada-USA rivalry has always been there, right? This just adds that. It's almost like, it's like you're adding
You're adding fuel to the fire. You really are.
Yeah, like you have the barbecue going. You're putting on the what's the oil? I can't think.
You're throwing a match on gasoline.
That's not gasoline. Yeah, that's basically what that is. And listen, I think at the end of the day, once we get past that, it's about the product on the ice, and I think it's about the USA Canada dynamic of hockey. And I hope it's a great night. I hope it represents everything about hockey that we love. Like, I hope it's a classic game. I really do. I don't want it to be a blowout, even for the U.S. I want 3-2 right down to the end, which I think it's going to be. Because I want it to. I want to see even some of the Canadian players show their best. Like, I want McKinnon. People say, "Wow, look at Nathan McKinnon." I mean, look at Connor McDavid. Look at, you know what I mean? Sidney Crosby, of course, the great Sidney Crosby. I mean, he's still
right, and it comes down to it's Jack Eichel versus McDavid. Your 2015 draft class. It's Crosby versus the U.S. goaltending. Can they stop Crosby and Nathan McKinnon and there's so much build up in this game, and I hope that whether you agree with it or not, just please I understand agreeing with the booing and things like that. You might not be one of the ones to do it, but all I'm saying is, like, we have to have at least one sanctuary a little bit, right? That it's not like making things political and and not doing not and it just bothers me. It's not necessarily that whether I agree with it. I didn't agree with the kneeling. I'm not a Trump supporter or anything like that.
Nope.
Whatever, like, do you, but like stop making everything political, and let us have like one sanctuary where we can go and
we do need some sanctuaries,
not hear the outside noise, because there are people like myself that just I don't watch the news. I don't, I like I don't watch the local news. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch, Fox News. ESPN.
I enjoy
NFL
my
Network,
sanity. I stay away from those networks. All of them equally. By the way.
I'd rather turn on SpongeBob. Because if you're gonna watch mindless TV, let me at least laugh, right?
Yeah.
Because, but in all seriousness,
Yeah.
I do have the U.S. winning tonight.
Okay.
And I expect to see, this matchup again on Thursday night.
I agree 100%. I agree.
No matter what's going to happen. And I expect to see that matchup in Boston on Thursday night.
That'll be such a great night.
But with that being said, it's the one thing I wanted to get to real quick, the last thing on the Four Nations real quick, is how do we think that we can, because we talked about the 26 Olympics, the 28 World Cup. How do you think that this can be expanded and be like a yearly tournament? Because, like, I get it. I get it for the rest of the NHL. Like, they're off and you don't have the All-Star game and things like that. But I'd rather see a Four Nations tournament every single year rather than an All-Star game. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'd rather see that, because it gives a chance to show off the best players in the world in more than just a 3-on-3 tournament. Because that's really, as much as I loved the All-Star game growing up as a kid, as an adult, I think it's dumb. I really do. Like, it's a very kid-friendly event, and it doesn't let you get the best of hockey.
The only negative of having every year or expanding the tournament is that it lengthens the time off that you need to get the whole tournament in. And I'm not, and it could affect the quality of the games in the NHL because you're packing more games, more 3 and 4s, more 4 and 6s, because you're going to have over 2-something weeks off. Obviously Czech Republic to me is an obvious one you got to add to this. I mean, Czech Republic is loaded with great talent, right? You have Russia. Now I know Russia, again, there's a political thing there, right? The war and all that, but Russia has so many great players, right? I mean, Russia, their goalies are Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, and Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, talk about depth of goal. I mean, that's insane, right? And then you have even Germany. I mean, our guy, JJ Peterka, Draisaitl. I mean, they're starting to get some great, Tim Stützle. I mean, there's some great players that are starting to come from Germany. So you have to figure out a way to get a couple more of those involved. And even those Slovakia nations, like there's great talent there all over the ice.
I mean, we remember what it was a couple of years ago. What was that? 2018 or whatever it was. When they, how did they handle the young kids? Because there was too much of a team to create just the USA and whatever. They did the North American. They've got to have some way to include these Russian players. Because again, I don't let us watch the best players in the world. Let us watch this game and let people just have a break from things, because it truly is. It's like, if you take going back to football, it's like, the Jets suck, so we're not gonna, whatever. So we're gonna keep Sauce Gardner, and I know that's on a much smaller level, a much lower level than what's actually going on, but. It's basically the same sentiment. Is you're keeping the best players in the world, some of the best players in the world, out of a tournament because, because let's think about it. Had it been 1998, and you're keeping players like Dominik Hasek and Jaromir Jagr and out of a tournament like this.
Yep.
That's not fun.
Absolutely.
That's not fun because you're asking. You want to see Brodeur and Waugh go against Hasek. I know they don't play each other, but they're basically dueling to keep the puck out of the net. One of the best Sabres games of all time, even though it was 1-0, was the playoff game with the what was it, 3 or 4 overtime game where Dave Hannon scored.
That's a great game. I'll never forget it. 2:03 in the morning, not 2:00 in the morning.
2:03 in the morning.
That's right. I remember I watched that on my 20-inch television, dancing around. But this was Tuckia had an interesting comment too. I mean, do you like the placement of when this is? Now, he didn't like it after the Super Bowl. I'm just trying to think of when would be a best time to to have this tournament. I was thinking that it could have been a positive if it was marketed correctly. I mean, some fans are now maybe thirsting for something to watch. This is the first weekend without football. There's the NBA is now shut down for their All-Star weekend. Like, when is really the best time?
I actually have a good
showcase
spot for it.
Mm-hmm.
Is right after the season.
Yeah.
Before the Stanley Cup playoffs, right after the season.
So then it gives those teams a little bit of a rest before they go into the playoffs.
So it allows those teams that little bit of a break, that 2-week break, so that everybody is off. And I get it. You're having the Connor McDavids, the Leon Draisaitl's, but these guys are some of the guys that need to continue to play and things like that.
But will the teams be okay? Let's say the Sabres make the playoffs, right? Tage Thompson's in there right before the playoffs. He plays, gets a 4-week injury, and then he's out for the playoffs. Like I get what you're saying though. It's not. It's a good thought. I just wonder if they would hold players out because of that, or if they would say, well, because the playoffs are ultimately their number one priority. Right?
Injuries happen.
True,
though, right? I mean,
but now they have a lot of time before the playoffs to get better. But I get what you're saying, though. I do.
Because I truly do think that, as much as I like the placement, because I do like the placement, like this would be All-Star Week. This would be All-Star Week with what's going on right now anyways. So, you're only adding, and to touch on your point real quick about, how making it longer of a season or whatever, or making it, more condensed into, where it's trying to do it. Yeah, I mean do it to kick off the season. That's a good one too. That's where that one from 2018, whatever that was called, that they did then. That's when they did that.
What would be good? What Tuck brought up a good one here. If I like the Four Nations concept, right? And here's what I'm getting at. Okay, maybe before the season you say, okay, maybe you have a ranking system where like, okay, USA Canada plays for the goal the top this year. They automatically make the Four Nations next year, but we have a couple other countries like Sweden, Finland. Maybe they play before the season to qualify for that Final Four. Then you take the break with just the top 14. You know what I mean? Like maybe you maybe it's like it's like playing like to make the Final Four of college basketball, kind of, right? And that becomes like, but there's a lot of good ideas there though. I like that.
Yeah, I mean,
right, for preseason.
What are there? What are there? There's U.S., Canada, Finland, Sweden, Latvia, Russia, Czech Republic, Slovakia. I mean, that's your 8 right there. I mean, you could literally go. You could literally go with 8 there. Give the 2 championship teams the automatic bid, and you go. One versus 6, 2 versus 5, 3 versus 4, and then the top whatever teams qualify or whatever. It comes down to 4 teams.
Hey, listen, I know this may not be a popular take with some hockey fans, but I wouldn't mind just shaving off the first couple weeks of October and just making this the tournament and just going to the season. Like I would sacrifice a few regular season games to see this, and then. You know what I mean? And have even more urgency for the NHL for the playoffs when you come right back. So.
Well, I also think that, this is a discussion for a different day, but I also think that 82 games is a good length to the season. And, I understand that, sport is year round and everybody needs, there's so much only time between whatever. Like, if you literally still played 82 games and you went into... if you went all of April, added those extra 3 weeks on there, and you went all of April and finished your 82 games and started the playoffs in the beginning of May, I don't think there's an issue with that. I still think that, you move back the start of the hockey season, but, I mean, how much really is it moving it back? I mean, if you move it back to July 15th rather than July 1st, like, who cares? Like, We're wanting to see the product on the ice as much as content creators, and you and I talk about free agency, about hockey or football or like who cares? Like we truly want to see what's going on the ice or on a football field or anything like that. So I truly think the more hockey the better, And if this is a way that you can do that, this has been a great tournament, and I really do. I think it's awesome. I really do.
Absolutely.
This is also another good comment from Tuck. Yeah, I think that 76 games is a good season length too.
Yeah, that's what I was
So,
thinking on those lines. That's exactly what I was thinking, Tuck. Yeah, that's in those terms. But
So let's get back to some of these questions from Tuck, and
yeah,
from
and
Patrick real
they were
quickly.
excellent questions.
Let's go with Patrick's first. If there is a move the Sabres could make, what would you want it to be?
Well,
I mean, you know mine.
I do. Listen, it's interesting. I've been looking at some totals here on Puckpedia, right? Percentage of the cap spent by forwards and defensemen. Okay, like some of the best teams, like Toronto, 72% of their money goes to their forwards, 25% to their defense, 64-35 for Colorado. Sabres have only 43% of the money allocated to their forwards and 41% to their defense. But yet, we still have ups and downs on defense, even though we're spending 41% of our cap on our defense, right? So, I mean, what would I like to see? Number one, I'd like to see somehow, some way to get Matthias Samuelsson out of the city. I don't know how you do it. I think for better or worse, he needs a change of scenery. That's first. That's one of the priorities for me. And maybe, look, I guess I'll go with this in two ways. Maybe Henry Jokiharju is a guy that we consider maybe trading just to give him a different opportunity, going forward. Maybe we, focus on Bowen Byram. Maybe we get Dennis Gilbert more everyday minutes on this team, which I approve of. That's the kind of player that we need. We do want the big center, right, Matt? But we all know that's really tough to do. But I still think there's moves that this team can make. Right, there's still things that they could do on the back end with their defense. There's still things they could do by getting another, veteran forward, where maybe they then send down one of these young guys like a Zach Benson. I love Zach Benson, but I still think he'd be better off in the AHL. I'm just saying it. I think he's only 19 years old. Let's give him time to develop and get great minutes and beast down in Rochester. Right. Maybe Dylan Cousins needs a new home, and I spoke about St. Louis a lot. And I know nobody's focused on St. Louis, but they're out of the playoffs. They have two excellent centers in Kyrou and Robert Thomas. I think Robert Thomas, as a great setup man, would be a great fit for a guy like Tage Thompson. You put him in the middle there. He's our number one center. You know what I mean? It just allocates things all together. So I think you could buy and sell is my best answer here. You could do a little bit of both. Maybe you could peel off some vets, right? Maybe but you could also try to bring something in. You have to give this team something, because we know we're not making the playoffs, right? Let's be honest. We're not making the playoffs, but what do you do to inject life into this team, not only for this year, but going into the offseason next year?
Well, and so we'll get to because you kind of led into Tuckyaz's question from earlier. But what is the one move? Going back to Patrick's question, what is the one move that you would want to see if you could make one move?
Well, Elias Pettersson would be number one for me, but we're not going to see that till the summer, unfortunately. We're not going to see anything before the deadline on that. I'd be shocked. Where Vancouver is at this point.
I'm the same way. That's the one move that I'd want to make is Elias Pettersson if he's still available. I'd like to see that. I mean, if you could get him before the deadline, great. If not, I that's something that more seems like at this point a draft day type trade for what's going on. But that one specific move is Elias Pettersson. One specific positional move is to find that 1C in any way, shape, or form that you possibly can.
Yep.
I don't care if that's bringing in a Jordan Kyrou or Robert Thomas, or finding the best center that can play right now in the draft, or this team needs the one center or 1C, and we know that. We've talked about that at length on the show. But let's lead into Tuckyaz's question here. I'll bring it back up on the screen. Reasonable blueprint for a reasonable and achievable blueprint for how the Sabres make the playoffs next year. Who stays? Who goes? What is different?
Well, I think I still think Remember, we always kind of tease about the solutions in the room. Terry Pagula's comment. I think in part he's right. In part, right? There are still some really good pieces on this team. We still have guys like Darlene. We still got guys like Tage Thompson. But we have to find a way. A reasonable blueprint is we definitely need another top six guy. That's non-negotiable for me, right? If the Sabres do not find a way, and it could be a winger too, like Mitch Marner. Like I know we spoke about him. He's still an unrestricted free agent next year. If there's some way they could break the bank for Mitch Marner, I think that would give us exactly what we need to take this to the next level. About who stays, who goes. Jason Zucker, I would probably keep. I think he's a guy I'd like to have around. He really likes being here. I would keep him in the fold. A reasonable, again, moving off of Samuelson, maybe Bowen Byram, you keep him around again. You try to fix the back end of this defense and, again, just interject, again, more physicality, maybe another vet, another guy that's kind of been through the NHL wars and can kind of help some of these young kids. Because, we talked about this at length, Matt. Look at some of the games we blew this year that we lost late, right? Mm-hmm. The Sabres reeked of inexperience and saying, what do we do here? How do we handle this, right? Like, what if they had Ryan O'Reilly still on this roster? Guys like that understand how to win, right? That do things that could calm these kids down, and we could have won 3 or 4 more of those games. You give us another 7 or 8 points. We are exactly in the position that we probably thought we were going to be in all season during the 13-game winless streak. We've been 13-game winless streak aside. We've actually been a pretty solid team this year, which is crazy to think, right? It doesn't look that way. And I know it's hard just to say, hey, just get rid of a 13-game stretch, but that's really where we're at. So I would say, there's a lot to say in terms of each move. Jordan Greenway is a guy, I'm not sure if I keep him or not. He is a little bit of injury prone. I don't know if I want to lock him up. So I would I'm leaning towards a move off of him personally, but I do like him as a player. But yeah, we need him available. That's the other thing too. So I really, just to kind of high level answer Tucky's question, I do think we're far from being a top team, but we're much closer to being a playoff team than people realize. I don't think it's going to take.
Gotta fix goaltending.
Goaltending's another thing too, especially to back up. And UPL, are you off UPL, or you still believe in him as number one?
I told you. I tweeted it out the other day. Horrible contract. Needed to do some sort of bridge deal with him. I think that UPL, took the deal, with the security in mind and things like that, but you're getting better play from, and I hate saying it, even though, because he hasn't had the goaltending support, you're getting better play. You're getting better play from James Reimer than you are UPL at times. Mm-hmm. But real quick to go on Tucky's next question. Adam stays and goes. Adam stays or goes. I think he stays for. That's not a choice, but it's clear as day that he's most likely staying. So we can't, until we see something different from Terry Pagula. My thing for this, I'm going to give you a couple things. So you have to fix your spine. Of your centers, your spine down the middle.
Yep.
So that whether that's going to get Elias Pettersson, whether that's going to get another guy out there or anything like that, my thing that I would do is Rasmus Andersson has 1 year left on his contract. And he's only 29 years old after this season. I think you got to get a player like him. Yep. If you were to do a hockey trade with Dylan Cousins for Rasmus Andersson, I think I'd be okay with that, because you're now getting Darlene, that partner that he has not had his entire career. I think that you gotta. I think with that being said, I think if you're moving, putting Rasmus Andersson in there with Darlene, I think that you're now sliding Bowen Byram down into with Owen Power. and then I think a third line defenseman of Connor Clifton and Dan Gilbert, I think is actually a pretty good third line defensive pairing. And I think that kind of fixes your defense to the point where it's it's more than serviceable at this point. I think I think that's a good plan there on defense. I don't know how you're going to fix the goaltending. Short of finding some spell or potion to make UPL into Dominic Hasek or Ryan Miller. I don't know how you fix that.
Well, no. Here's the other question. What do you do? I mean, where are we at with Devin Levi at this point? Now, I know he's doing great in Rochester, but he's been a mess with the Sabres.
I think that's the up and down. I really do. I think that I get that you were trying to win this year. I really do get that you were trying to win this year and you're trying to make the playoffs but I think that they should have either had him from the start down in Rochester and kept James Reimer rather than waive him and keep Devin Levi up here. I think Levi needed to start in Rochester so he has the full season of games because you've seen it as he's starting to put the game together. He's making it the incredible saves he was making it at what North or East West or what is it Northwestern? I can't remember Eastern. Where did he go to college?
Definitely Northwestern. Northwestern was it? Yeah, I believe so.
It was one of those colleges.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
Northeastern.
I can't remember.
I think. No, you're right. You were right your first time. He went to Northeastern. I get those stuff all the time.
But I think that you're starting to see the Devin Levi that got traded for Sam Reinhart, right? I think you're starting to see that guy in the AHL, and you're kind of seeing that progression of being developed as he's moving to like that 10-game stretch, 12-game stretch was great at the end of the season, trying to get it because he played all of those games for Northeastern, and then he comes right into the NHL, and he's already So you either needed to have him in the AHL all year, or you needed to have him starting from the beginning and not sign UPL. Like those are the two options with Devin Levi, because I truly do think that the more he plays, and you can see it, the more he plays, the better he's getting, and the quicker he's acclimating to the pro game and things like that. The transition from AHL to NHL, I think, is going to be a little bit of growing pains there, but with him playing in the AHL as well as he's playing, and if he goes through a playoff run with the Amherst, and he does do all that stuff, and I think that's going to help him too. But when it comes down to it, I think that he stays in the AHL again next year. I think you got to either trade UPL. Personally, I think you got to trade UPL. I think that you have to, because it's not necessarily he's a bad goaltender. I get that. He's not a bad goaltender. It's the lack of concentration at different times of the game, in the most important times of the game. For him to make him, he plays at 6'4". Like he's 6'4". And at times he's one of the faster goaltenders in the NHL as far as movement goes. He makes himself so small in net.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like the one goal, I'm trying to remember who it was who scored on him. But he makes himself like this and comes down. Why are you not making yourself? Why are you not putting yourself up like this? And pucks seem to go over his shoulders on a regular basis, and it's. Like, you're not killing yourself down low. You're in the butterfly. You're already on the ground, put with your pads on the ice. Why are you not making yourself as big as you possibly can, to stop the puck? It's not make yourself small so you can, whatever. Yeah. Because I get it. Like, if the puck goes off you and whatever, it goes. But his rebound control is not very good this year. There's so many things with him, and
he hasn't been as consistent as he was last year. Last year he had an excellent better stretch for about 3-4 months, and sometimes these guys sign these contracts, Matt, and they put a little more pressure on him. That happens sometimes, and Money
And I
changes
get that
people.
too.
Right? We talk about it all the time, right? And that's a real thing, right? We think these guys are robots at times, but when you go from making $1 million to almost $5 million, you're gonna have different pressures. You're gonna have different things you're gonna be doing. I mean, it's just the way it is. So.
And I get that too. Trust me,
Mm-hmm.
I completely understand at that point. But this has been something that's been a thing with him his entire career on the Sabres. Is the lack of concentration on in the most important times of the game.
Yeah.
Because it's
I still would like to see them fix some of the forwards and defensemen in terms of the system, and then we can analyze UPL. I get what you're saying. I mean, if the right deal came along, sure, but
I think you have to. I think you have to be open to the option of trading him. But if it's me, I'm personally looking for a deal to trade him to, and then bringing up Levi next year and letting him, no matter what happens, you're sticking with Levi 50 games, 55 games. Because at some point, like, you have to find out what you have. And, if you bring in I almost said Rasmus Asplund. Rasmus Anderson.
Asplund. I always like that guy. Here.
If you bring in a Rasmus Anderson to play with the Dahlin, I think that helps out your defensive core. So that's going to help out keeping the puck away from Devin Levi, and they're blocking more shots with Lindy Ruff's defensive style system. I think the simple fact, if you go out and get let Lindy Ruff pick his assistants rather than these guys that are just whatever, maybe that helps with the goaltending. And as far as the forward group, I'd like to see Dylan Cousins get a new home. I'd like to see Zucker stay. I'd like to see them, when we get closer to the free agency and stuff like that, we'll have more knowledge on who we would think that would be a good fit for that 1C role, or keep. Because it truly does feel like Tage Thompson's staying on the wing, right?
I think it'd be a better option, especially if we could get that playmaking center, right? And as much as I like Kulik, in general, I would love to see, like I said, a Robert Thomas or a Pedersen come in where we can slide Kulik to the second line. Just let him develop there. Don't mess with him. Just let him do his thing, right? But I still think we may need 2 top 6 forwards, right? And we talked about, remember I was talking about the allocation of the cap money, right? How it's almost even for the defense and the forwards, right? You don't see a lot of teams with 2 guys making prime money on the cap for defensemen like we do with Power and Dahlin, right? Usually you have one guy and then they have some solid defensemen across the board. You have that, which Dahlin is a franchise defenseman, right? That's why I still think they should have bridged Power, and they probably could have moved him at this point, because I am for moving Owen Power if the price is right, of course, right? If you get the right deal. In that sense, I would not object to it, but again, I was thinking about the Islanders too with Bo Horvat. I love Bo Horvat; he'd be a great fit. But again, the Islanders are now kind of in the playoff race, and they have more no movement clauses than you can shake a stick on, and I just don't think any of those guys are going to agree to come to Buffalo. And that's something that Adam said, but he said it with a snarky remark. But he's right. The no movement clauses are hurting the Sabres. But that's also a situation that they created with their ineptness over the last 14 years. Yeah. Anyway, but I'm sorry to, go too long there. But that's really where we're at right now. So it's really slim pickings in terms of what we could get that impact guy. We don't have many options, unfortunately. That's
Real Deal Prime. In the comments, if you want to explain that a little further, I understand. Do you think that's a problem? With his eyes, or do you think that's how he's told to play? Maybe expand on that a little bit more in the comments for us. But here's a quick list of your top 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10 free agent centers for this year.
Okay. What do we got?
I'm leaving number 1 off of there because I'm going to ask you a specific question afterwards. But But number 2 is Nicholas Backstrom. Number 3 is Yanni Gord. Number 4 is Mikael Granlund. Number 5 is Christian Dvorak. Number 6 is Sam Bennett. Number 7 is Andreas, and I cannot say his last name for the life of me.
Anesthesia?
Yeah.
Like that, something like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Robbie Fabry, and then Alexander Kerfoot and Brandon Tanev. Those are your top 10 minus number 1. Number 1, do you finally bring the nephew home?
The nephew.
Buffalo Bandits great John Tavares.
Oh.
Do you bring his nephew
Okay.
back? Do you bring his nephew to Buffalo and bring him? Do you try and bring him in at 34 years old as another veteran presence?
Yes. Yes.
And slide him into either your number 2 or number 3 center role and ride with Kulik as your number 1 center.
You know what?
If you can't get anything else done.
Looking at John Tavares, like you said, he is 34. Now he's from Mississauga. So, maybe he doesn't want to move too far. I mean, Buffalo's right down the road. I mean, John Tavares still has 21 goals, 24 assists. He's almost a point-a-game guy this year. So he's still producing. And the nice thing I like about Tavares, for the most part, he's available. Like, he got hurt in 1920, but he plays every year, 77, 82, 82, 80, 80, 79. Like, he plays. Like, this guy's available. He's just... I would definitely be open to bringing in John Tavares for a 2-year...
What's the best ability?
Availability. Mm-hmm.
Like to be able to have him that many games and that always there. Like to have players like Kulik and McLeod and even Kozak and those guys learn from him, and even Tage Thompson learning from him to because you're not picking up John Tavares to play your number 1 center. That's if you can't get Elias Pettersson deal done or another true 1C that could come in here. Do you bring in a John Tavares and if that's what you can do as the Sabres and have him try and help turn this franchise around? Put him in here for 2-3 years, sign him to a 2-3 year contract, and that puts him at 36, 37. I think that's a yes, depending on the deal, because you're not paying him again $11 million.
Matt, if I had it my way, I would sign 2 centers off that list. I would sign John Tavares for 2. Give him, but again, is Tavares?
Oh, I know the other one. It's Sam Bennett. Like that's
100%. You put him at number 2, and then I put Kulik as my 3rd center for a while. We gotta remember, Yuri Kulik is only 20. Okay, so you put him at 3rd center. You could have Tavares there at the top center for a couple of years, kind of teaching Kulik the ways of the league. Right, he can learn some things off of him, and then eventually Kulik could move to the top. Right, but maybe I don't know if he's ready for that for 82 games every year his age. Right, so. And Sam Bennett brings a dynamic to this team that would be. I mean, he's a Stanley Cup winner. He does all the little things that we want, and then that what that does, Matt. It frees the Sabres up to take a Dylan Cousins, okay, package him with other players to get another big forward, and then you can move Tuck down to the second. Like, there's all kinds of things that this could create.
Oh yeah,
right?
No, absolutely.
I mean,
and
it would be
all
amazing.
There's all sorts of plans you could do once you go out and sign a player like that. I wouldn't be surprised to see John Tavares come off that list and stay with Toronto personally, but
he goes to like a team that may be closer to winning now, like a Carolina or like you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he would be willing to come to Buffalo to, but again, if you pay him enough money, all right, if you wow him enough, he may say, But I mean, if I could turn around Buffalo, maybe he's been there many times. He knows the market, right? Maybe says, he's an American guy. Maybe he would be like open to it. So you never know.
So yeah, I mean, the last thing we'll touch on here real quick before we get out of here today. But I truly think if you finishing up this conversation real quick, I think if you bring in John Tavares, if you bring in Mitch Marner. If you bring in Rasmus Anderson, package a Dylan Cousins for Rasmus Anderson, and I think that fixes your defense. I think that fixes your forward, and then go out and sign Sam Bennett. Like, you go your top line, Yuri Kulik, and then John Tavares second, Sam Bennett third, McLeod fourth, or some semblance of that. I think that you have a much better spine that fixes your spine in some way, shape, or form. It gives you the ability to move off of other guys and goes from there. And maybe that, with the scoring that might create, that then helps UPL in net and keeps some of the pressure off of him, in turn allowing him to, be here.
Yep, absolutely.
With that being said, real quick, we do have to pay some bills, and then we can get out of here.
All right.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollo's, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, and we want to thank all of our sponsors this week. Definitely enjoy some of those. You'll see myself and Student Body Right tonight at Elliot Apollo's restaurant. Live from there tonight. So definitely tune in for our Bills show there. Check out any of the other great Bills shows along the network, coast to coast on Wednesdays. Our new show, Chasing Data, on Thursdays is more of an NFL podcast, even though he does touch on some Bills stuff for us. Fridays are going to be the Buffalo Blueprint. And then Saturdays, as normal, is Third and Manageable with us, Hockey Hotline in the morning. And then Monday nights is our gambling show and No One to Blame. They're going to have some great things along the way
Nice.
for everybody, for basketball, for March Madness. So definitely watch out for that and going from there. Brian, what else we got for today before we hop out of here?
That's really it. I mean, come next week, we could always review Four Nations and get into our matinee against late afternoon against the Rangers as we kick off the season again and kind of get a little bit closer to maybe some more trade deadline talk. And again, we'll dive into what Tuckia was saying about how to fix the Sabres and maybe break it down piece by piece. And we could get more into it as we go forward, especially into the off season. So that's something that I think that was a great question, but there's a lot to unpack that we could kind of take in segments. And we could say, hey, let's talk some defense. Let's talk some of this. Let's look at some targets, and we can kind of go over that together and discuss it here. And we really appreciate all your comments and everybody in our group chat. So that's all I had.
With that being said, Brian,
it's good to be seen. Have a great day. Let's USA. And
USA, let's go.
Go Sabres, but we'll leave that for next week.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys next week.
Have a great week, everyone.